before just to get myself something for my throat and all that to make sure.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome back to the WRC Creator Series. It's another Monday night. It's the penultimate round of the season, and that means we're heading to Rally Japan. My name's Tom Knight, and alongside me for the next couple of hours to give his amazing insight to the world of rally is John Harris. John, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Voice has recovered, so everything is good. Looking forward to one of the fastest rallies, especially in the Rally 1 cars. Rally Japan takes no prisoners and it requires you to push to the limit. So it's going to be interesting to see who can find the right level of pace, let's call it.
Yeah, very much so. We've got, obviously, as you said, the Rally 1 cars. That's both the 2023 and the 24 cars that came one of the most recent updates in the EA Sports WRC game. So a wide range of cars for our drivers to be able to choose from. And I think we are expecting to see potentially both on show tonight, but I will get confirmation of that in just a little bit of time. Of course, Kamikaze will be leading our Constructors' Championship. He's had an amazing season, to be fair to him. Of course, there's been road bumps along the way. He's back off the VR, and he's just showing why he is so quick in these rally cars.
Yeah, I think last season was sort of a learning season, really. He knew he had the pace, and he just had difficulties managing that pace and managing the risks he was taking throughout the entire season. And we saw rallies where he was dominating, and then would just have this one crash or mistake or little problem, even. And yeah, this season he's just pulled it all together. When he hasn't been first place, he's always been second or third place. So consistently racking up the points and just getting to the level he needs to be. And it looks like just he's learnt exactly how to be in the hunt for a championship and make others make mistakes. We've seen quite a few mistakes from Vlembar this season, and that's not necessarily indicative that Vlembar's doing anything wrong. It just indicates how fast these guys are pushing in terms of wanting that championship, but also wanting the overall victory. They're very, very close to the overall points winners of the entire Creator Series. So just proves that those that we have on broadcast are really, really fast.
They certainly are indeed. I mean, at the moment, Rhodey's top star point standings in terms of the overall club. He's on 3,294, 200 points behind him is Man Dude 94, and then Kamikaze sits in third spot with 2,964. So incredibly close between our top three drivers at the moment and everyone in the club. I think we've had probably close to a few thousand entries by this point over the course of the last 6 rallies. We've already had over 400 for Rally Japan as we speak this evening. So it's been really well received and everybody is looking so, so good. But obviously, just what we were saying about that championship fight and the contenders that are in it, especially for our creators, consistency has been that key thing that Kamikaze really had in his favour.
Yeah, for sure. Straight from, well, to be fair, actually, to him, he made that so in winning the first round by dominant fashion and just making sure that everybody knew that they had to push 100% to beat him effectively. And he's managed to get that consistency by having the pace and just being able to go, I'll drive at 95% pace, knowing that the people that are keeping up with me are having to push 110%, and I've just got to wait for them to make a mistake. It's what real life drivers like Sebastian Loeb, Sebastian Ogier, and this year Thierry Neuville have managed to do. Just keep it on the road and just wait for others to fall foul to their own mistakes, really. But yeah, in terms of consistency, it's been sort of a revelation of how um, just at one you have to be with the car, with your settings. I know he's done a lot of setup work in the background to make sure that everything's optimized. So there's all the little details that you hear routinely in sort of Formula One leagues or other circuit racing leagues in general and in esports in general. Those little details are now creeping their way into the rally world, in that to be at the top, you have to take care of every small minute detail. I know, for example, also he does a bit of tire testing as well to figure out what the optimal strategy is, when the tire drop off point is. It's complex, but that's what makes a good driver, paying attention
It
to the details.
absolutely does. The devil is in the details, as that old phrase loves to go. And Kamikaze, I think, has absolutely nailed what he wants to run from this season, and he's used it to his advantage as well. But on the flip side of that, you've got his competitive nature, but also you've got this gentleman that is regularly in the VCs with our creators, and of course he's helping them out and giving them that advice. So whilst it is a very competitive atmosphere in amongst our creators, and of course in the wider club as well, I think you've got that spirit of almost teamwork, almost like a community, where it really comes together, and that is so lovely to see over the last season or so.
Certainly is. It's yeah, something that I'd say is quite rare actually in the whole world of competitive racing. Although I'm not sure Kamikaze would say he's an esports driver or anything. He likes to play things quite casually. But yeah, it's refreshing, and I think maybe we could do with a lot more of that in the sim racing world because it tends to inspire newcomers. It tends to inspire people that maybe weren't interested at the start in rally, but they actually gave it a go because of recommendations or setting. And yeah, it worked wonders. And working wonders are now our drivers into the stages because we've got Becky D and Aerotech starting off on one of the most complicated stages. I think we start off straight away by the 20-kilometer long stage.
Yeah, it's going to be a real tough rally, this one, of course. I think it's asphalt or tarmac for pretty much the majority of the rally, and it is 20-kilometer stages to start and to finish here this afternoon. So they've got not only that factor of I want to go fast, but you've got to consider the idea of mental endurance as well, because you get through stage 7, you're like, oh, sweet, one more stage, and then it hits you with that massive 20-kilometer stage again. And you've got to focus once again, you've got to do all that prep again for such a long stage that is so unrelenting.
For sure, just to confirm, if you can keep all four wheels on the road, it is 100% tarmac. However, the chances of doing that are quite slim. As you can see, the roads are very, very narrow and very unforgiving. There are a few areas where you can put the wheels onto the grass and get a little bit of a cut in there, but it is risky, and there's a lot of areas where you can fall foul or run-off areas or just missing your braking zones. It's going to be very, very difficult in terms of the tyres because, as you can see, you've got corner after corner after corner. The tendency to overheat the tyres is very, very high, especially on the softer compound, which is why I heard a lot of drivers talking about using the harder compound when it's dry, because yes, we have the rain incoming midway through the rally, and indeed a tyre strategy where people are actually going to have to reach a compromise on which tyres they're going to go with, because we have two loops between services where we have one stage wet, one stage dry. So it's going to be interesting to see who has the confidence to go with the dry tyres or go with the safe option.
We certainly are, and we've seen this in rounds gone by and in rallies gone by over the course of the last 3.5 seasons, where we've had one stage wet, one stage dry, where it can't necessarily decide if it wants to rain over the course of a couple of stages. So drivers really have to take that gamble of whether they want to effectively ruin a set of wet tyres on a dry surface, if of course the rain comes later in the factor of 2 stages. But of course, if they choose to run the dries, they'll be quicker in the first, but they will be slidey and understeery in that second sector, and it's a real payoff as to which gamble you want to go for.
Yeah, and the risk is very high because just with all the barriers, the trees, and indeed the rocks even so in some places on the outside of corners, the chances of getting a puncture are actually quite high for a tarmac rally, and so you've got to really be careful about not damaging your car. Aerodynamics on these Rally 1 cars are absolutely paramount, as is managing the battery. So you've got to have quite a, I wouldn't say a conservative driving style, but you have to be quite smooth and committed to the corners, but also intelligent in thinking about how much you regen that battery. As you can see, the regen meter just below the gear and the speeds there, with the bar on the left-hand side going round in a circle. And once it hits green, you'll see it hopefully in a minute when they start braking, when Aerotech starts braking. There you go, it says ready. And then when they accelerate past the point on the bar on the left there, there's a little like sort of electrical discharge icon, let's call it, and that indicates that they will deploy the power from there. So it can be quite nerve-wracking actually if you're not used to it, because the power only deploys to the rear wheels, so you can get a kick of oversteer. So it adds a lot of depth to the driving on these Rally 1 cars.
Yeah, it also adds that sort of element of risk, doesn't it? How soon do you want to try and get that throttle down? How soon are you willing to try and take an escape out of a corner? And if you're not ready for that battery to come at you full charge, I think drivers have often been caught out by that real kick from the rear wheels, if you've been saying. But one interesting thing, and we don't obviously want to spread it to real world motorsport too much whilst we're in this broadcast, but of course the announcement came out rather recently in the world of WRC. They're dropping the hybrid systems in the next couple of years.
Indeed, not just the next couple of years. The last rally to use the hybrid was Rally Japan last
Oh,
weekend.
oh,
From 2025, there will be no hybrid. I wouldn't call it a controversial change. I think the reasons why are very well founded. However, it is a disappointment to see hybrid technologies gone from motorsport. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why. Obviously, getting into them is quite technical. But the good news is that there is that option for it to return in the future with maybe a better package or a better way of making it work. And so not all is lost, as they say, because I think hybrid technologies and any form of technology that makes the car go faster is, great for the drivers. They love it, obviously. More horsepower equals better. But also great for the fans as well because it's very spectacular and it adds some new technology for car manufacturers to develop. So yeah, as we've seen in a lot of motorsports, it can be a very good thing if implemented correctly. So maybe we might see it return in the future. But indeed, for our drivers today, they will be dealing with it, and they will be either cursing it or loving it out of the corners, depending on their setup. Looking at the way that most of them are driving out of the corners, they're actually losing the hybrid very early into the corners. So what happens is if you break and regen the battery, and you give it a little, as you said, deploying it as early as possible to get a kick out of the corner. If, for whatever reason, you have to lift off the throttle to below the threshold point, you lose the boost. And so it can actually be let's call it a paradoxical disadvantage in that you tried to get out of the corner very quickly and actually you ended up losing the boost and losing power because you were a bit too aggressive on the throttle. As we're
yeah.
seeing Kamikaze there, just wanted to say, just dipping a wheel onto the grass there, and you can see how easily it can go wrong. And he just managed to recover it, but I can tell you, he's probably thinking about that moment and thinking, I'm right on the edge right now.
I think he certainly is. He's one of those drivers that can quite consistently come in and perform results. We've seen that over the course of the 6 rallies we've had so far. We've got 2 to go if you include this one that we're here at Rally Japan tonight. Of course, we finish the season at Rally Oceania next week out December 3rd. Who would have thought it? We're into December already. And then I think preparations will be starting, hopefully, for another season of WRC. I'm sure everybody at home enjoys it just as much as we do here, not only in the commentary box, but the drivers as well. As Vlembar there, I think he's having a few issues with his controls or maybe with the stability of that car. Because I've seen him clip a few barriers, I've seen him clip dip a wheel off the side of one of the hills. Nothing catastrophic yet, but not the Vlembar that we've seen over the last 6 rounds.
I think Vlembar will be suffering a little bit in this one because he's on controller and he doesn't have the possibility to modulate the throttle like on a wheel with pedals. And so many of the corners here I'm seeing he's losing the boost or he's getting that boost kick him into oversteer, and with the controller it can be quite difficult to catch. So I think he's playing it a little bit safe, and even then it's catching him out a little bit. These cars are quite notorious for being quite snappy, let's call it, and so it can be quite difficult to just find the perfect balance.
I'm sure as he continues through the twists and turns in Japan, he'll hopefully find that rhythm, find that balance, because Vlembar always seems to come good at the end of a rally once he's got his eye and once he's managed to figure out how he sits with a particular car. There sometimes is no stopping that man. We have got 4 drivers on our screens at the moment. We got three the Pumas. I'm not being able to count there, and Tess Well choosing the Hyundai i20 for themselves. Of course, all using the the 2024 rally spec cars. He's just off dipping a wheel in towards the hill, and there is a brief pause there. Not quite sure what's happening over there. But we'll watch on board with Ryan L83 heading through the twists and turns of the hills. He's rather focused. He's got his headset on and making his way through the hills. Lovely custom sort of display module at the bottom there indicating his throttle and his braking. Really allows us to see that insight as he heads his way through this really long stage. He even gets a wave to camera as well as he knows he's being watched. Everybody give him a wave back in the chat. We'll continue through. But it's really nice to see the throttle and the brake inputs that he's given here, because it's a nice insight, isn't it, John?
Yeah, my apologies for that. My microphone decided to turn itself off for whatever reason. So I was commentating on how Ryan had got this huge snap of oversteer, and yeah, nobody could hear me, sadly. But yeah, he's I'm used to a lot of sort of endurance racing where the hybrid element is already there. So you'll see him doing a lot of braking. I can see he's got a very aggressive sort of throttle application, just trying to get that maximum power out of the corners. Probably finding it very difficult to adapt to a four-wheel drive car. It's a very peculiar feeling on tarmac. Because most of these endurance racing and indeed all of the formula stuff is rear-wheel drive, and so you don't get the understeer that you can sometimes get on tarmac with four-wheel drive, no matter what you do, and you've just got to adapt to it. And you can see he's very, very just twitchy and not finding the right performance window, I think, and just perhaps struggling to get used to the concept that you have to let the car slide a little bit. You don't have the aerodynamics that you have, and indeed the diffuser, more like that you have in many types of circuit racing, which glues the car to the ground, and so you can apply the power neatly and not have that oversteer moment. But he's going fast, to be fair. With all of that sort of reactiveness, he's still putting the time down. I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of time you can put on the leaderboard.
It will be indeed. See what he manages to try and contend with. Tesla's back from his brief pause. He's back in, back in the virtual cockpit, making sure that he's going through nice and content. He was across the bridge. I think there's a little bit of damage on that Hyundai car. You can just see the bonnet starting to rise and fall with every single undulation of the road, and that's a little bit of clip on the rear right, and that won't be too healthy for him.
Got lucky, very lucky, because it can catch in the bodywork and can stop you or give you a puncture. Very surprised he didn't get a puncture from that, because that's the kind of incident that you see that gives you that damage. It looks like the stop there was to just take off his gloves, maybe to just have a little bit. Well, the gloves might be literally coming off as well, but who knows? But he looks like he was trying to get a little bit more feeling through the wheel of what the car is doing. Looks like it's going well for him, but once again, another driver caught out, and again into the corner. Yeah, just braking a little bit too late there, and getting caught out by the understeer. I think he was expecting the car to get rotated into the corner and use the handbrake, but at these low-speed corners, yeah, if you've not got the weight transfer going, they'll just lock up and understeer, and more damage on the car. You do need those headlights, and as you can see, everybody's got the headlights on, and it can be very, very tricky to spot the barriers and the apexes without them.
Yeah, Blembar and Kamikaze, I think, if memory serves me correct, they're pretty much at identical points in the circuit. Maybe I'm wrong. As we can see, there we are, almost identical parts, yeah.
Yeah, one corner, I think, between them. I think, I'm trying to figure out who's in the lead. I think it's Vlembar that's just a couple of corners ahead. Well, he might not be for a long time. What a recovery. Up onto the bank, spinning 360 and getting back on course as if nothing happened. That is a proper initial D moment right there. Get some music on that. I'm sure that'll go around the social medias.
I think it will. Blembar saved very, very luckily there at the end, just managing to, full pirouette in that Ford Puma and managing to keep it straight on the straight and narrow. Kamikaze now heading his way through the final two splits in this stage. I think he'll be rather relieved to see that the end board or the end markers to finish it off. And we are joined, of course. The rain will start to fall about halfway through this rally, and it is a more short dash approach, a quick dash approach for the remaining sort of rounds until we hit stage 8 again, and then we do this stage, I believe, in reverse.
Indeed, yeah. We finish off with exactly the same stage, just in reverse, and it can be very off-putting to drive a stage which you've previously driven, but in the other direction. The corners do not look the same at all. I think we've got our first drivers over the line, with Becky B in 6th position overall, only 10 seconds off of the lead of the rally, which is absolutely insane in terms of driving. I'm trying to find Aerotech's time. It was within the top 100. I'm just scanning through at the moment, but I am struggling to find it. It's here somewhere. There he is, 79th place. I knew I'd find it. 1 minute off the pace, so it looks like for Aerotech there's been a few issues there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have gone his way. We saw him briefly at the end of the stage, just checking the timing boards, and I wish I'd paid a little bit closer attention just to see what that time was, as he did indeed cross.
The
Aerotech, there we
setup
go. You can
I've
see him
got, it's very
replaying the run
safe.
of
Like,
his
it's
rally. I
very
think that
stable
will
at
be
high speed.
maybe just to spot any minor mistakes, or maybe just to
But it's
reconsolidate
really,
on what
it's
exactly
understeered.
happened.
So like on some of
Yeah,
those,
it looks
I
like
was
Tesla's had a few
tapping the
more
e-brake
problems
like all the
clouting
time
the
in the slow
barriers in this
stuff.
one because
I
his
know it's
hood
bad for
has
your
just come
tires,
off
but
the
it's
car,
like,
so no more lights on there, and it's looking like a little bit of damage. I think from what I was seeing just from some of the cameras that we have available to us, he was just bashing the barriers here and there, and it can be very easy to get a little bit of aerodynamic damage. So yeah, not too major at the moment, but it can be very confidence denting. To start off with such a demanding stage like this, and as you can see there, just a little bit too confident in the brakes, and the trail braking in these rally cars is, I'd say, slightly less effective than circuit racing, again because you're lacking that little bit of downforce. But yeah, the roads are not swept. They're not. It's not it would be akin to, for example, doing Monaco or for example, Jeddah, which are street circuits, and the tarmac is a little bit dusty, or there's leaves on the ground, and that little bit of element of doubt and changing grip can lead to you locking up and making mistakes which you wouldn't do otherwise.
Yeah, it certainly can. It's one that you've got to really try and have your focus about. We've spoken about this before in probably seasons gone past. I don't know how much we've actually mentioned it this season. Test will obviously racing on the Formula Rim. Quite a few other drivers opting and favouring the traditional circular rim, and maybe it's that, maybe it's not working out for him. But also with a driver that has done so much circuit racing, Test would almost be more at home, more accustomed to that traditional Formula Rim, at least for himself.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I think there's two schools of thoughts really. Um, in general, the only thing that really matters, apart from psychologically, is the diameter of the wheel rim. Most wheel rims are between 27 centimeters to 33 centimeters. 27 being the Fanatec F1 rim, if I remember correctly, and 33 centimeters is what rally drivers use in real life in terms of steering wheel diameter. The main advantages of having a smaller rim is just being more reactive, basically. You can turn it faster, a tiny bit faster, and there's less weight to it. Whereas anything bigger will allow you to be a bit more smooth. But there's also that psychological factor that I talked about, in that if you have a Formula rim, it's flat on top, and that can subconsciously lead you to try and keep the rim, the wheel as centered as possible. So it changes your driving style, which is a weird thing of human psychology, but it does happen. And so there's so many different details that you can apply to your simulator, or that you can notice about other people's simulators, even down to the applying a bit of tape to the center of the wheel to indicate the center position changes how you drive the car a tiny bit. So choosing the right wheel, choosing the right equipment for your performance actually really does matter.
That's fascinating. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought the psychology necessarily came into sort of events like this, and you can kind of see it on Aerotech's wheel. Obviously, I believe that comes more preloaded into the wheel. Oh,
Sorry to interrupt, he's gone straight into the barrier. I think, miraculously, he's actually got away with it. But just where Aerotech was going through there, he clouted the barrier at full speed, and I don't think that he got a puncture from it. But that is incredible stuff, and this stage is notorious for that. You've got to go flat out in some of these sections, and yeah, I think he's got away with it. Oh, sorry for that, just had to interrupt with that one.
no, you're you're more than welcome. Of course, when a big crash happens, you've got to jump to it. But what I was just saying, that centre line you can see on Aerotech's wheel, obviously built into the wheel, allows the user to kind of get a rough guide of where the centre line is, and that can be helpful, or as you said, can be rather denaturing to a driver's performance. It all goes back to that psychology you were mentioning. But also, we're now in stage 2. We're now in a considerably shorter stage, about a third of the one we just did for some of our drivers. Looking at about a 3-minute 40, probably about a 4-minute sector time for most of them. It is now a short sprint for some of these.
Most certainly, yeah. The well, obviously, because it's a tarmac rally, it's very fast, and so you get through the stages, you get through the kilometers a lot faster than you would on a gravel rally, say for example Greece. And so even with all of the hairpins and all of that, you're getting great traction out of the corners. And also, let's be honest, because of the rain coming midway through the stages here, if you do intend to switch to those rain tires, you can afford to be a lot more aggressive with the slick tires, with the dry tires, because they don't have to do so many stages. So you can be aggressive, you can go flat out, you can apply that little bit more wheel spin to just get those extra tenths of a second where it matters, and just swap tires before they even go off or off the cliff, really.
Yeah, it's that real factor of balancing the wheels. The encephalosis, massive snap left to the left-hand side. Car practically sideways. You can see there was a little bit of fear in that man's eyes as he was trying desperately to keep the car on the asphalt below him. I think he did a very, very good job to just recover it there.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, when it starts going very fast, you have a tendency to overcorrect, and it really does not help with the weight transfer of these cars. They are still quite heavy with that hybrid unit in the back, and you can feel it. The hybrid is positioned right above the rear axle, basically. So it's like having half an engine in your boot, effectively. So if you do get a tank slapper or anything that's drifting the car effectively, then it can be a real big problem, especially if you need to turn for a corner there and then. As we saw with Becky B there, you just have that snap at the rear, and that can be very, very detrimental if you're trying to turn into another corner, as we saw Ancephalosis do.
Yeah, we had Becky B controlling his car by telekinesis by the looks of things as well, but I'm sure that's probably a camera issue than a game issue. He is very quick in his own right, and I'm sure we'll see where he stands on the leaderboards in just a couple of moments' time. Aerotech up across the tightening boards as well. Becky B, let's have a see where that's going to be. I think that's
P20,
about,
I think.
yeah, P20.
Let's have a look. I have the leaderboards in front of me, and his time doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. P20 exactly. 8 seconds off. Again, a lot of the drivers here will be either tarmac specialists or will have practiced this one, because many players that are preparing for the upcoming potentially esports campaign of this game will be practicing the Rally 1 cars in every single stage. So we expected the competition in this one to be very high, and we are definitely seeing that on the leaderboards with times that are very close to the world record of the stages. So if you want to fight at the top of this one, you're going to have to push and push like hell, as Montoya would say.
Yeah, I think there certainly are a lot of drivers maybe getting caught out, but of course you have to drive these cars on their absolute limits. And one man that you can almost certainly guarantee will be doing that is Kamikaze, top right hand side of your screen. So now covering your entire screen as he makes his way halfway through the stage at the moment. 1 minute 20 on the clock. I think he's on for a bit of a flyer here, John.
He does like this stage. I know that he's practiced this one quite a bit. This one, favourite of the time trialers, let's say, because it's got all of the different types of corner in it, some very high speed stuff, and then some, as you can see, medium corners with a few hairpins chucked in there toward the end and the midsection here. So it's a great place to test the setups. It's also one of the shortest stages, if not the shortest stage, I think, of the rally. So very good for just testing the consistency of either yourself or your setups. And so a lot of people have great knowledge of this stage. As you can see, just getting two wheels there onto the curb to make sure to get the shortest line possible, let's call it. Can play to a disadvantage though. If you don't get the consistent grip, you can end up sliding up out quite wide. But as you can see, it looks so stable, doesn't it? As we've got Test Will in the barrier there, I think just hitting a telegraph pole, if I am correct. So not going well again for Test Will. Maybe the damage that they previously got is getting to them, as you can see. Just turning in, and what's happening, I think, is they're turning in a little bit too much. Maybe the wheel rotation setting a little bit too aggressive, and so they're trying to brake and turn at the same time, and the tires are just locking up and they're going straight on.
Yeah, it's not ideal for what they'd want to run at the moment, and I'm sure as we go through the stages, they'll maybe overcome, adapt, and understand the challenges that this rally presents a little bit more, because it can catch you out, especially if you've not done much practice or done the route scanning, shall we say, just gone through the twists and turns. It's a very demanding one as Test Will into the barrier once again, ever so slightly. But we were saying it can catch you out. It's that sort of rally that all the twists and turns sometimes just come a little bit earlier than expected.
Indeed, yeah, and seeing as I think the rally is being run in winter conditions. The road is very cold as well. Track temperature, as we'd say in F1, is quite low, which can be great for F1 racing because you can push the tires a lot harder before they overheat. However, in the world of rally, winter means debris on the track, like leaves or mud and things like that. And so, actually, winter tends to produce slower times in general. So, yeah, you're looking at just having inconsistent grip and just especially in the braking, you might just lock a wheel here and there where you weren't expecting it. And so, as always in rally, but we say it every week for different reasons, though, adaptability is definitely the key to this one. As we can see, a lot of the drivers are struggling with either oversteer or understeer. As I think Ryan just taking a little bit too much apex speed, effectively. Although it only appears to be on certain corners after a long straight, effectively. He's got a different setup on the car, and you can see the opposite to test Will, in that he's braking and the rear of the car is rotating way too much into the corner, and he's having to back out of it. And that's really the on tarmac, braking is 50% of the driving, and you have to know how to brake. The latest,
Test well off.
yeah, all the way off. Yeah, saw that one coming. Sadly, he's on the limit. He's really, really on the limit, and he's trying to trust the car where the car is telling him that he needs to slow down. And unfortunately, that the roads here
God
do not
damn it.
pardon you whatsoever. We've seen that in real life last weekend. But yeah, it's not good. But he'll recover from this. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, he will. You can see the determination in his face just slightly before his camera went off screen. He looks rather, not upset, not angry, but more disappointed at that earlier incident right before the final timing beam as well. But on board with Ryan as he makes his way through. He's just gone over the last split before he reaches the end of the timing beam. Just using the barriers to his advantage. A little bit of a tap with him never hurt anybody. And he will continue through and see where he finds himself on the timing screens.
Yeah, very, very weird sort of problem that he's having here. It looks like he's locking all 4 tires, which I've very rarely seen happening, but it doesn't look like he's managing to get any sort of rotation into the corners, hence the reason why he's just dabbing the brakes. And you can see there, he couldn't get the car slowed down. As soon as he dabbed the brakes, it locked up, so he went off the brakes, and he's trying to sort of coast the car into the corner, but obviously that's not going to work. And so you tend to think that you're just not turning in correctly or something, whereas actually it's something pretty basic. But obviously I'm speaking from experience, that's the thing. And he's going off. Oh, what a good recovery. I must admit, I thought he was going way off there, but he's just chucking it into the last turn. That's a great drift there. But you can see how close to the limit of grip he is, just turning into the corners there.
Yeah, I think it's something that he could probably work on mid-stage, if I remember correctly. You can make slight adjustments to your setup. Don't quote me on that. Don's... Pardon?
Not mid-stage, no.
Not mid-stage. At the service area, that's probably more what I meant to say. But he'll be looking to try and make potentially some improvements, or see where he can find a little bit of better balance in grip. Maybe he's set up for the wet conditions, maybe a little bit too early, and that could be causing the demise here.
On tarmac, the setup shouldn't be too different, let's say. But I think that's just more a general setting thing, because even if he does have a wet setup, for example, the pressure should be even less in that case. So yeah, it's a bit of a puzzling one, because if he's locking the brakes now, I can guarantee you one thing: when we get to the rainy stages, it will just be locking up everywhere. So that's a little bit of a cause for concern, I must say. But you know, it could also just be a driving style thing. He might be comfortable with that, with the brakes locking. It might be helping him, and he's just not in the rhythm of things. We've seen it very often, where 2 drivers have had completely different driving styles and have just managed to set near enough the exact same time. For example, Kamikaze struggling at the moment. Last stage there, stage 2, he was 27th overall. He did say to me he was going to take this one as just a finishing rally, so he wants to get the points on the board to make sure he secures the championship. But you know, in terms of times, you can see how fast and how quickly the pace drops off if you back off the rhythm, because Aerotech is less than a second off of his time there. Aerotech driving a really good rally, it must be said actually. I do not want to let that one slip through my fingers, but Vlembar at the moment in the lead as well in P3 overall, I think that is. P9 overall, sorry, after stage 2. So yeah, our drivers are going very, very fast once again.
They certainly are. Becky B throwing it through the utmost twists and turns here, using all of the road available to them. Little hug
A
with
little
the
bit
wall
more.
on the left-hand side, but getting off scot-free. That car must have been about 45 degrees at one point.
Yeah, I must admit, while checking the times, I had one eye on the times, one eye on his run here. Really, oh no! Just as we were commentating on it, it's just carrying all of the speed in that downhill section can catch you off guard as the corner tightens quite a bit there and all the way off the road into the tree. Thankfully, it reset him before he hit any of the trees, I think, so no damage there, quite lucky, but just shows you can be confident, but Rally Japan bites.
It certainly does, and we have just seen that pretty much live in action. Aerotech just slightly further ahead in his stage run. Ancephalosis and JPH making their way through, and that is going to be the wrong way. That's going to be a wall, and well, a nice unsmooth 180 for Ancephalosis.
It's using the barrier to your advantage, I think, should be called. A very good recovery, to be fair. He knows that car looks unstable. Once again, I've said it before but I'll repeat it for those who may be new to the stream. The difference with the Rally 1 cars compared to previous generation WRC cars, the top of the pecking order in terms of rally cars, is that they have no central differential, which means if the car starts understeering or oversteering, normally in the past the central differential would try and modulate that and try and bring the car back to stability again. So act as a tiny bit like stability control. I'm simplifying it, but that's kind of the effect that it has, both on deceleration and acceleration. But now that that's gone, as soon as the car snaps, you're left to your own devices, basically, to save it. And we're seeing Ancephalosis catch the car a lot, but in terms of drivability, that thing is not looking stable whatsoever, as he clouts the wall a couple of times and getting away with it so far.
He is indeed, and maybe it's a comfort thing, and maybe it's not necessarily going his way. I think we just saw Becky B having a little tap with the barrier as they run down towards the final
nearly a collision with the. Sorry to interrupt you, but just nearly collision with a telegraph pole. So that could have been so much worse. Anyway, my apologies.
All good, all good. Becky B on the time boards. We'll have a quick check where they find themselves in a minute. Ancephalosis making its way through the mid stages. Aerotech's found the trees, but I think that is after the timing beam does finish, so that won't affect his run time too much. Kamikaze in the top right, just starting off his run through the twists and turns. We'll be looking for a very smooth run, as is Vlembos, though two once again not far off head to head. Ancephalosis, bottom left. Again, just finding the grass, finding the gravel, the car not necessarily pointing the right way. I think there might have been something wrong with this setup.
It's looking that way, isn't it? It's difficult to tell, obviously, because what you can see as a spectator is sometimes very different to what you feel as a driver. But just from looking at it, yeah, as soon as he taps the brakes, he is counter steering. Now, there is the saying you've got to turn, right to go left, but that's a little bit extreme on tarmac, and indeed, it won't be doing the tires any good. It won't be doing the car any good. And I think a lot of drivers on tarmac tend to go with a very oversteery setup, and the problem is that it can play sort of a false friends type of way of doing things. That's a heavy clout with the barrier there as well for Ancephalosis. So, yeah, maybe the rain will do a bit more favours. The danger on tarmac is that you set the car up too oversteered because you're afraid of understeer. And sometimes actually just having a tiny bit of understeer and playing it safe can be a lot better to your overall time, because Ancephalosis picking up a lot of damage. I'm noticing as well, he's downshifting very aggressively as well, down to first gear for that turn, and that can lock the rear axle as well, or indeed all four wheels if you downshift too aggressively. So there's a lot of factors at play. It'll be interesting to see maybe if we can get an interview with him during one of the service areas to find out what exactly is going on.
Yeah, I know he's been playing a lot of iRacing the last few days. I've been watching some of his streams, so maybe some habits from one of those games that he's been playing, or maybe I don't know, something going on internally in the car. But that wire fence that he actually hit was the same fence Aerotech was snapping on his runs. Lembar with a very uncommon mistake as well, just tapping the barriers he makes his way through. Now, pretty much equal with Kamikaze, but he started behind Kamikaze in terms of run times.
Yeah, Kamikaze, I think you can see it in the demeanor of the car. He's not as on the limit as he normally is, and this is what I was talking about. He's figured it out, so he's got his game strategy for the whole season, in that if I have X point advantage, then I don't need to push anymore. I just need to secure points. And at the pace and level that he's driving, he could secure a top 2 or top 3 finish, and effectively bag the championship this round, which would be ideal for him, because then he can go flat out and do his usual stuff on the last round. Obviously, for us, we always like to see it go to the last round, but with Vlembar having a DNF effectively last round, which happened off broadcast, it kind of threw the championship away from him a little bit.
Yeah, it's not been what he'd like to remember necessarily. He is still P2 in the championship, and that's what he's kind of got to remember. He's got actually one stage win under his belt. He won last time out in Italy. Not last time out, time before last out in Italy. Of course, we weren't able to broadcast Estonia last week, but as we head into the final couple of rounds, he'll be looking maybe to try and hold as much as he possibly can. He's only won one event. He got a power stage win in the first round in Latvia. Apart from that, Kamikaze's pretty much taken the entire run through, apart from Commander Biz winning out in Central Europe.
Indeed, yeah. The Central European Rally was a little bit of a mistake fest, let's call it. There were quite a few errors coming in. I think maybe a puncture for someone, but I can't remember exactly who got that puncture. But yeah, Commander Biz on tarmac definitely knows how to drive flat out. So there's been a lot of new figures emerging in the world of rally sim racing, and so yeah, I think the end of this season and most definitely the start of next season will be very interesting to watch, as Test will once again just struggling to get the car rotated, and just struggling for any kind of grip. It's as if he's got the wrong tires on, or as if he's taken wet tires, anticipating the rain to come earlier or something. But yeah, in any case, quite bizarre and obviously quite frustrating for him in general, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know 100% why he's taking the rain tires. I mean, the rain is coming in stage 4, and it is a longer stage than we're sitting here in stage 3. But it is only meant to be light rain. However much that causes chaos with a few of our drivers, I'm sure we'll find out in a minute. You can see Aerotech and Becky B making their way through the wet stages at the moment. And Aerotech is really looking locked in over this rally. Yes, he's clipped a couple of the barriers. Yes, he's made a few minor mistakes. But actually, he's looking very quick over the last few stages or so.
Yeah, I just want to say, cancel my comment of earlier. Of course, they're all on the wet tyres because, or they should all be on the wet tyres because the next stage is wet. So it does make sense that they'd be struggling for grip. If you overheat those tyres, they can just lose all of their tread, effectively. Yeah, I think for both of this duo, Aerotech and Becky B, they've been just going from strength to strength, to be honest. Aerotech has really managed to just get the pace, and he's showing it this round that on tarmac he can be a great contestant.
Yeah, he really is. And yes, there's been minor mistakes. Let's not brush that completely aside, because I think it's sometimes good to admit the mistakes. And there is a tree.
Yeah, we're not doing very well in terms of the not jinxing anybody tonight. Yeah, in terms of mistakes, that one's quite a minor one though, so I'm sure we'll be okay with that. On such a sort of long stage, you do want to make sure you don't get any punctures and all of that, but you have that, let's call it a safety net of having a service afterwards, so any damage that you do, in theory, can be repaired. But you can see the pace difference, even if it's just a couple of tenths per corner. There's so many corners on this rally that if you're really going for it, then you can make up multiple seconds, if not tens of seconds per stage. And Becky B really sort of winding up the pace, I'd say. Maybe a little bit too much there, just clipping the barrier. But yeah, as Ancephalosys goes off as well on the same section of road, I think, oh no, this is at the start, but the same type of section of road. As the grip levels are ever changing in rainy conditions, very difficult to get used to, especially after 3 dry runs.
I think they certainly are. It's a real technical challenge. They have to completely disregard what they've had in the last 3 runs. They have to really relearn those braking points, relearn how the car is going to react on the asphalt that is below them. Becky B's got that almost so wrong. 2 wheels off the asphalt, just holding on. And that Ford Puma somehow continuing to go through. Just very quickly, thank you for Riff Blondie for dropping in with the raid, and welcome everybody if you are new to the WRC Create Series. I'm sure you're not, because Riff Blondie has of course raced in it over the last few weeks and the last few seasons. So welcome in, and hope you enjoy the evening.
Indeed. Yeah, Riff Blondie really impressing us, I'd say, as well, with her driving. I know she plays a lot of different racing games, and so sometimes it can be very difficult to adapt, but she's definitely proving her talent for sure in these past couple of seasons, let's say. Yeah, and in terms of the driving here, you're definitely tuning in to one of the fastest rallies, so it'll be very spectacular, especially on board with these two, Vlembar and Kamikaze. Still interlocked, let's say, in a battle, a fierce battle for the championship, and it might go down to the last round based on the results here, but they're definitely pushing as fast as they can so far as the rain continues to descend for all of our drivers.
It certainly does, and this is going to start to cause chaos. This is only light rain, of course. We are expecting heavy rain, I believe, later on. We've got overcast conditions where it's still wet in stage 5, and then it does start to dry up towards the end of the rally. But I think a lot of drivers will be relieved that this marks halfway once we're at the end, a 13.7 kilometre stage for our drivers to ensure. We then have a few blitz of 6s, a 10, and then that almighty 20 kilometre stage as the 4 to finish it off. But Vlembar rear end kicking out of that Ford Puma. The controller, of course, must be absolutely thrown around in his hands at the moment, trying to keep the 4 wheels facing forwards.
Yeah, it must be very difficult just managing to get the car slowed down enough. You can see the little bit of hesitations, but to be fair, it looks like he's got a great setup for turning, and he's managed to sort of adapt his driving style. So looking at the stage times, he's actually doing very well. He does have a tendency to have I'd say a speciality for 4-wheel drive cars. That's definitely his element. Yeah, I expected him to do very well on Rally 1 4-wheel drive cars, regardless of what he might have said before the live stream.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think if we speak to him just a little bit later on as well, he'll give us maybe just an update how he's going, maybe how he's feeling now. He's almost halfway through, or now over halfway through the stages that are set here in Japan. We've got all our drivers back on our screens, and it's a real mix of conditions for some. You can tell who's pushing the terms of maybe turning the particles off, turning the rain off. Some other drivers deciding to keep it on, like Ancephalosys. There's windscreen wipers continuing to go, and the rain just beating off that windscreen. That is a barrier as well. Front left damage. I wouldn't be surprised if well, that shook him a little bit.
Yeah, lucky again to not have a puncture at that speed. It's very tricky. I will say, in some people's defense, they have had to turn down the settings just to make sure that our broadcast footage is good enough. So it might not be their own personal preference or choice. But yeah, for sure, Ancephalosys is struggling a lot for grip there. He's so much to the inside of the corner, struggling just to have the confidence to push the speed into the apex. And yeah, it looks like he's creating his own problem now by being very aggressive on the braking and on the throttle, getting back up to speed. He's probably overworking the tires, getting a lot more, a lot less tire life out of the tires. And so on a stage where they've already done one dry stage, so probably they're well past their best, it can be sort of a spiral of effect. As you can see, the car just sliding there. But that's for all of our drivers. The car starts to slide, and you've just got to either go with it, control it, or back out of it. And that's where you can lose multiple seconds or indeed gain a huge amount of time. And it just relates to how much risk you're willing to take.
Absolutely correct. Risk versus reward. I think that's been almost a gamble in motorsport for generations, and how much are you willing to put on the line for that success? As Rembar just tapping the barrier once again. Ryanel at the bottom of his screens, he's making his way through the hills, and he's got a nasty little hairpin heading his way. Gets the rear kicked out nicely through. Maybe just a little bit of the wheels catching where he wouldn't have wanted them to, but he's managed to get it through nice and smoothly, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm very surprised in Ryanel 83's driving, because he's very much used to sort of circuit racing, and he's trying this out for different type of driving, and you can see that he's hesitating a lot just in terms of the corners. I know he has done quite a bit of practice, but he's sort of using that circuit racing approach of trying to get peak grip every single corner. And slowly, you can see it, slowly but surely, it's getting there. And he's getting the groove, and he's starting to ramp up the pace. And then what will happen, presumably for 90% of drivers anyway, what happens is you have that switch where all of a sudden it clicks, and then you start becoming a lot smoother. And that's when you know effectively that you've mastered the driving of these rally cars. But yeah, and as soon as I say that, into I think the same barrier that Encephalosis crashed into earlier. So yeah, tricky still out there, and despite your best attempt, it can all go wrong so quickly.
Yeah, it's not been the way, I think, for a few of our drivers, but they will be pleased to hear that the dry conditions will come back to them. But of course, there will be those slight elements where they'll almost have to relearn the dry conditions again. They won't have it in stage 5, it will stay wet. But as we head into the final 3, 6, 7, and 8, that's where they'll really start to pay off. And did Tesswell get a reset penalty there?
I think so. They were stopped on stage, which is very rare, and facing the right way. I think maybe just went off track between the barriers. As you can see, there's quite a bit of gaps in the barriers this high up. Health and safety have got their head in their hands at the moment. And as we see, Tesswell just locking up again and going straight off. And that is terminal damage. I did not realize that was possible in that location, but that sadly is going to be our first, and I hope our only, DNF of the day. They will be able to restart at the end of the stage. They're going to a service area, but not ideal.
And of course, they reset to the next stage, or the next service area, don't they? Which actually would be the next stage anyway, stage 5, I think.
Indeed.
Oh, Vlembar's rolled it! Vlembar on his side and almost on his roof for half a second.
Good recovery once again. Vlembar minimizing the damages costing him in terms of mistakes, and I think he's just that little bit more committed than Kamikaze this round to sort of not have that be a factor, let's say. But yeah, on this downhill section, it's notorious. You've just got to go for it, and if something does go wrong, you're effectively a passenger, and Vlembar had something obviously go wrong there. And yeah, as soon as you hit the barrier or hit something, then it's kind of game over for you.
Yeah, it's not ideal for himself, but I think this goes back to what you were saying maybe at the start of the broadcast. Kamikaze is in that 95% zone, and he can avoid making those mistakes. Vlembar knows he has to push in this situation to try and claw back any chances of the championship.
Yeah, I mean, Vlembar, realistically, the only strategy that works for Vlembar is actually getting Kamikaze to push out of ego, right? Which I will say for Kamikaze, no disrespect, I have a great sort of friendship with Kamikaze, as I do with all of the Creator Series drivers. But Kamikaze does have that tiny bit of ego, and if you can get it going, if you can convince him that he needs to beat you on stage to prove a point, then Vlembar can possibly get him to DNF. And the championship might be back on in terms of proper battle into the last round. Ryanel 83 just putting 2 wheels on the grass there, and getting away with it. I must say, great recovery, but he's pushing way too over the limit. As I said, locking up the tires. Multiple of our drivers, including Tesswell and Ryanel 83, just locking the tires already when it was dry, and I did predict, sadly, that it was going to be an issue, and you can really see that now. Although Ryanel 83 looks like he's got just no grip at all. there. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. That looked very uncomfortable to drive.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a fan favourite. Let's just say
Oh.
that. But should we get some drivers in for a bit of a chat and see how their rallies have been going? I'll let you choose who we kick our round of chats off with.
I'd love to chat to potentially Test Will, just to see, because they are new to the broadcast. Hello, Mr. Test Will.
Hello.
We saw it's not exactly gone according to plan, but we've seen from multiple stages that you've had a bit of problems. What's going wrong for you at the moment?
Well, this is like my first time in the wet. And like I only have like 20 hours on the game, so I'm just very new. But yeah, this rally is a lot more difficult than the last one was.
It is
Yeah,
indeed.
it's been catching, I think, quite a few people out. Of course, Japan, from what I've understanding and from what I've learned about rally over the last kind of 6 to 7 months, it is one that the minute your concentration goes, that car either is in a barrier or, as we've seen with a few people, upside down.
Yeah. It's very difficult. Also, yeah, I like gravel more than asphalt as well on this game.
Yeah,
So
you seem
I
to be
found-
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah,
Carry
go on.
No, I was going to say, it looked to me like you were driving it as a gravel sort of car, and you were locking the brakes a lot. Is that the problem that you're currently having, just in the braking zones and going straight off?
Yeah, trying to get used to the handling. I'm usually on the F1 games. It's a lot different than the WRC games.
Fair enough.
Yes.
I might interject, and commentators not always meant to show sort of setups and all of that, but turning down the brake pressure setting by, I'd say, maybe five clicks to the left might help you out in these changeable conditions. There you go. Pro setup tip.
Thank you.
Well, just looking forward. You got a few more rounds to contest with. You'll be glad to hear it does dry up as well. How are you feeling about your chances for the final few runs?
Hopefully, they're better than it has been so far. But yeah, hopefully it will be a good one.
Amazing stuff. Well, best of luck for them, and I'm sure we'll see you on the circuit just a little bit soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Will. Wow, should we go back to back for interviews? It's very rare that we go back to back for interviews.
Ryan L83 has just unmuted. I wanted to have a chat with Ryan because been a bit of a few rough stages for him at the moment. You've put some practice into this, but it's not gelling so far. What seems to be the issue for the moment?
I might have been stupid and went softs in the first two stages because I felt it right at the end. Well, halfway around the second stage, I felt the car wasn't feeling right, and then I'm not good in the wet, and I've had about 2 days of practice in the wet. I've never touched it since I've had the game, so that was a bit of an interesting experience for me there. But at least it's out the way. I know it's damp for the first stage after service, but as I said to you, John, I want to finish, and I'm halfway there, so that's a good sign.
Halfway there, living on a prayer. Anyway, so over to you, TK.
No, of course, you said it's wet for that one stage 5, and then we run through 6, 7, 8, gets dry again. And how are you feeling? Are you preferring the dry runs to this? I think you kind of mentioned your frustrations with the wet a little bit.
I think it's the second part of this next stage where I'm quite strong. It's one of my favourite stages in the rally, so I should be somewhat competitive, but we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, Hakonko Lake's going to be interesting with it being damp conditions, but it's going to be wets for this. So the second half, even though it's my favourite stage, is going to be on wet tyres. So I'm not sure how that's going to be on a dry track. So let's see. Hopefully, I don't fall down a ditch or something again.
Well, best of luck to avoiding the ditches, John. Unless you got anything else, we'll let.
No, I was about to say the self jinx. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not us for once.
Well, I mean, you jinxed me, John, anyway, prior to this, so anything that happens now is your fault.
I have no recollection of such events.
Hmm.
No idea at all of what you're talking about. Well, in any case, good luck for the next stages. I'm sure you'll enjoy them no matter what, and it's great to have you on the show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Well, two very different kind of outlooks. Ryan's looking very positively to the next stage. I don't think Tesla could probably say the same for the wet conditions.
I'm not sure. Changing that brake bias or the brake pressure setting can actually do a lot of good. For especially if he, as he said, he's used to gravel rallies where he's locking the brakes up a lot and getting the car rotated. If you can just gain confidence on the brakes on tarmac, it can give a huge boost to the way you drive it, and it will handle a lot more like a circuit racing car. If you're just going in neatly on the brakes, maybe trail braking even, it can be such a huge confidence boost that quite literally you can gain 10, 15 seconds in a simple stage just because you're not afraid to push that limit anymore.
Yeah, very true. And it's almost taking that mental capacitor off in a little way. You kind of want to try and push the car to the absolute limit and not worry about the catastrophes or what I'm struggling to think of the word, unfortunately, but the resulting issues that can come with that as well.
Indeed, yeah. And it can be it can be make or break it on tarmac, because effectively you've got to realize in rally the gap and pace difference is a lot bigger than a circuit race. If you're off the pace in F1, for example, 2/10 off the pace is disastrous. Whereas in rally, if you get to the end of the stage and you're 2/10 off, you're on pace. In fact, you're probably celebrating. So confidence can literally gain you a couple of tenths per corner. Now add that up per corner per stage, you're looking at a lot of difference. And so it's very important when you're making a setup for a rally game to not only take into account the peak performance of the setup, but also how comfortable you are driving it. There's no runoff areas, there's no chance most of the times for recovery if you're pushing on the limit. So you've got to factor that in, and that's what the best drivers will do. They will factor in crash for Kamikaze, I think that was. That is a huge crash for Kamikaze into the barrier, and he's looking quite nervous there. So this is at the start of a segment of 2 stages there. I think he's got away with it without any major damage, but that's a huge knock to the confidence. And for somebody that was saying that he just wanted to get to the end, no big mistakes, that mistake might be, will it be a turning point? Who knows?
Well, that's the question now. Does he try and overdrive the car, or does he try and almost double down on the situation that he finds himself in at the moment, secure some good points that will certainly see him through the course of the season? Or does he try and maybe try and overpush the car? Has that ego attempt from Vlembar? Of course, we don't know whether that's happened behind the scenes or what conversations have been had, but who knows? If Vlembar's managed to, say, poke the right buttons and activated almost the esports driver in Kamikaze wanting to win every stage, could that cause maybe, or be a factor to what we've just seen?
Oh, Tess Wills just had another crash just off of our cameras there, sadly. So just going off the road, I think locking the brakes still. But the car looks in better shape, so hopefully we'll be able to see in the next couple of or corners that everything's going well. It seems to be taking it quite gingerly, maybe on some slick tires by mistake or something. The car's still not turning correctly. But most definitely for Vlembar, actually, Vlembar's under pressure from Becky B overall. There's only 10 seconds between them with Vlembar's mistake on the previous stage. So Becky B might actually be the deciding factor in that Vlembar needs to actually win the rally in the Creator Series standings and the power stage. So Vlembar's going to have to push 10 tenths no matter what. But for Kamikaze, it's not looking so bright as well, in that Becky B's ahead of him. You have RCJPH ahead as well, and so that's quite a few points being taken off of Kamikaze at the moment, plus the mistake which will have given him damage. So it's not exactly the situation he wanted at the moment, but I think he's still safe. I'm not quite sure, not good at maths, but it's looking good so far.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think it's so nice to see a lot of our creators, a lot of our drivers being very close together on a circuit, or I keep saying circuit, and I've done this before, and I apologise to quite literally everybody at home. On the road that we find ourselves at the moment, it's nice to see them all very close together.
It is, yeah. It's great to see the performance improvement. Every time we speak to drivers, they're learning something new, or people like Kamikaze are passing on their knowledge to other drivers. And so you see people, for example, such as Aerotech and a lot of other drivers just making their mark, such as Riff Blondie as well, just being able to get better and better as the rallies go on, as the seasons go on. And we've seen some people here who had never touched a rally game before actually getting into it and enjoying it and starting to perform nicely. I think Test Will just still locking the brakes, I think, and still it's less than before, though. I must say that the accidents are less brutal than before, so maybe a bit of consolation to be had there. But for Ryan, definitely struggling on these tires still, and just the snappiness of the car, I think, catching him out, and he's driving it a lot like a Group B car, which is spectacular to watch, but not necessarily the best strategy with these cars.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to necessarily pay off in its dues later down the line. But hey ho, if we go back to the Group B cars, I'm sure if we can put some influence on Punji for next season, hopefully we'll go back to Group B cars. That'll pay off rather well for him.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I still have to negotiate with him because I didn't have my champions around this this time. So maybe some bartering can be had to put some Group B in there somewhere, much to the dismay of some of our creators, I must say. It's always interesting to see some of the older cars as well, because you have to drive them with a different style, and I actually think that some of the drivers here would benefit actually from some of the older cars, just in terms of their driving style or the way they like to play a rally game a bit more aggressively. For example, if you want to drive Group A, and yeah, there's some drivers that just naturally like the downforce feeling of these Rally 1 cars, if they come especially from, I don't know, circuit racing game like Formula 1 or from endurance racing where there's a lot of downforce. They can find their feet quite quickly, as we're seeing Ryan at 83, finding their feet despite a few mistakes. The pace is there, effectively.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's finding their feet. And I was just laughing at a comment in the Twitch chat from It's Just Pre saying Group B is for people who don't know rally.
Well, for people who don't know rally, I'm not sure. I think a lot of the people who do know rally would still celebrate Group B as the pinnacle of the sport, in terms of just outlandishness and in terms of what rally represents. Basically being the outlaw sport in terms of motorsport for many, many years. It's where people that liked disobeying the rules went to play with no rule book, effectively. That has changed in recent years, for sure. But yeah, it's two completely different images of the sport, let's say. Group B, very flamboyant, very aggressive all the time, very uncontrollable sometimes. And then you've got Rally 1, which is still on the limit, but where it's a lot more, I'd say, stylish in that you can still drift the cars, but you can carry a lot of speed. You can be a bit more sort of like smooth with everything, as I said previously.
I'll take your word for that, because I'm in no position whatsoever to try and debate what are in what
Sometimes
level
I'm
of...
not either.
But I mean, I'm just one of these people that will turn up, I'll drive the car every now and then. I actually quite enjoy the game as we play it, because it gives me a chance to drive fast cars on mountain roads, which obviously there's not many other things that you get to do that on unless you kind of start modding the games. But it is fantastic to see. I'm still going to try and convince Punji to put the R4s in there. Because we haven't actually had one using them in all 4 seasons.
That's true. That's true. They can be quite difficult, actually, the R4 cars, because of the weight of the class. So it's a bit like driving a WRC 2 car, but just with a few extra hybrid units in the back. Put it that way, or in the front. But for sure, obviously, the main advantage of rally games also is just having so many different car classes. We do have a few circuit racing games that have the same advantage, but if you look, for example, at Formula 1 games, you have, well, if we disregard the supercars, which I think a lot of people would like to forget, you had not much variation. Whereas in this game, you've got so many different sort of styles of driving that you will always find something that floats your boat. As Ancephalosys apparently loves just using the barriers and like a roller coaster, effectively. It's not gone well for Ancephalosys, I must say. Just before the broadcast, he'd had at least 2 or 3 offs, some of them commentated by me as well. So he's not really found the flow in this rally.
Yeah, it's not been one to remember for himself. Sometimes he'll really lock in and sometimes really find his feet, but I'm watching his telemetry, the bottom left of his screen. He's really stamping on that throttle, trying to hope the car responds.
Yeah, I think that's it. He's not getting the turn-in that he wants, so he's having to either use the handbrake or just mid-apex just stamp the throttle and attempt to get it rotated. I will say, though, it does look like the car is oversteering and that he's having to correct it a lot, and that's what you can see, is that he's using the throttle to get the front ends to pull the car out of the corner after he gets a lot of oversteer. The problem is with a setup like that is that the more you slide, the more the tires wear and overheat, and it just becomes a drift festival after a while. So I'm sure he had the right intentions with the setup, but maybe he's gone a little bit too far. But that's for a driver really to say. Maybe I'm overstepping the mark on that one. He might be very, very comfortable with how he's driving the car at the moment.
Maybe he is, and as you said, a lot of it will kind of fall down to personal preference as well, whether they like those cars being almost to an element of stampy as well, and we'll see how it goes. JPH has, well, according to Bruce in the chat, has started head leaning as he makes his way through the corner, which you can find yourself doing quite occasionally on games like this, because it's a natural instinct to do if you've ever driven cars, especially in real life, rather fast.
Yeah, indeed. In real life, obviously, you do it for the G-forces as well, but it also gives you a sense of the car going through the corner. I do it myself as well when I'm driving. I just roll with the car through the corner, and it gives you psychologically. It's all psychological. It gives you a feeling of what the car is doing, and you can sort of tell your brain what it's doing by your head movement. If you're moving to the left, the car's moving to the left, and so you can understand things that normally you'd understand through G-forces. Maybe what I'm saying is a bit bizarre to certain people, but if you've driven any type of racing game with a wheel, you'll have felt that sort of instinct to sort of go with the flow of the car. As I just want to point out, behind the cameras, we've had Test Roll with another bit of an incident, just clipping the barrier and spinning around. So the mistakes are less, and he's getting the flow eventually. But again, braking seems to be the main issue for the moment.
Yeah, it certainly does. And just to build on that point that you were saying, if you ever watched Brendan Lee, of course, the two-time F1 sim racing world champion, he moves pretty much his entire body as he rolls through the corner in his sim rig, and it's really fascinating to watch because, of course, there's no G-forces acting on him, but he's doing that to almost simulate what he would do if he's driving, and it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, if you go and watch any of the esports drivers, in any competition really, actually, be it GT, Rally, Formula One, they'll all have their little ways of understanding how the car's working, their little sort of routines or things that they do mid-corner, just to give them the confidence or to give them the understanding of what's happening. I know through my years in esports, the way I used to do it was actually repositioning myself in the seat. As we've got Test Will off the road once again, just locking up the brakes, I think, and just going off. That's a very common corner with the gap in the barrier there. The corner tightens, and it's a very late pace note, and I'm not surprised, sadly, that they've gone off there. Got Ryan L83 approaching the same zone. For Vlembar, he's doing everything he needs to do at the moment with another top 10 stage time, just trying to keep the times rolling. Kamikaze is up the pace, though, in this one, P17, so maybe looking to nab a few points off of certain other drivers. Just to finish off on my point, the technique that I used to have was repositioning myself at every straight. I always wanted to have the feeling that I was connected with the wheel, so I just do a slight movement in the seat just to remind myself, everything's awake, all the muscles are working, I'm getting correct feeling through my wheel, and so that way, especially at the end of a long straight, I was ready to turn into the corner, ready to feel how the car was moving. And so, yeah, there's a huge amount of techniques that you just develop to try and perform at your best, no matter what the situation.
Yeah, very true. And apologies if you heard me somewhat trying to suppress laughter in the background. I promise I wasn't laughing at that. It was Snav in the chat once again. Someone's making me laugh at some point during every stream.
Good old Snav.
Snav's just got, if I roll the car, I almost fall off the chair.
Common reaction, yes. That's what happens if you set your force feedback too high. I'd suggest turning it down a little bit.
When you've got those the 4D motion rigs and you flip the car and it just like completely propels one side and flips the rig.
Yeah, I've seen it happen. It's you can find some videos about that. That's for sure. Some expensive accidents have happened there. Probably more expensive than some cars, would you believe? But yeah, indeed, it's you can see it through in just visually also in the faces of the drivers. They're so concentrated in, especially into the braking zones, and just feeling what's going on, and just making sure that they're confident in what they're doing. As you can see, for Ryan, he's really struggling into that braking zone to get the car to rotate. It feels to me like they're just dabbing the brakes in the hopes that the rear of the car gets loose and starts rotating. I think at that point they'd be better off just using the handbrake to like smoothly go into the corner, get on the handbrake, and then apply the throttle. Be a better technique. But then again, looking at his personal best times there that he's got telemetry of, he seems to be doing very well according to his times.
He certainly does. It's been a good few runs, I think, for himself as he's made his way through the twists and turns. I'm just trying to figure out what stage he would have been on. I'm going to assume probably, what, 6 at the moment, if it's in dry conditions?
I think, yeah, most people have done stage 6 now. I think a few people, like Aerotech and Becky B, are onto stage 7, so they're rapidly getting through the stages at the moment. Their desire to push on continues. As I said, in terms of the times, it's ever so close at the moment still, with Vlembar and Becky B overall split by about 15 seconds now, so Vlembar gaining time a little bit.
Yeah.
JPH doing enough to secure a spot ahead of Kamikaze. I think Kamikaze just backed off too much, and so he's not, according to me, barring any mistakes, I don't think he's going to gain any other positions, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do to win the championship.
Yeah, I think he's in that situation at the moment where he can almost take a step back and afford to at least make sure he finishes the rally, avoid any major DNFs, and that's what we could see. Of course, we've already seen at least one bout of terminal damage tonight, unfortunately coming a little bit earlier in the rally, and all he wants to do now is try and prevent that as we make our way through kind of the final 2 runs of this stage. And sorry, this 2 runs of this rally. We've got a 10.3 kilometer and then a 20 kilometer stage as well. So it's a long couple of runs to finish this off.
I think this is the longest stint, actually, this last one. So you're doing 30 kilometers, which may not sound like much, but when you've got this many corners, it's actually quite a bit. It's probably a 10-minute run of the longer stage at the end. So, yeah, you're going to be struggling in terms of tires, especially if you take soft compound, as Aerotech is struggling already with grip on the car. Looks like the car is just rotating in on the brakes again. Weight transfer. What's concerning for Aerotech though is that that's happening uphill, where the car should be understeering. So whether Aerotech's made a setup change or whether something's going on in the background, I'm not quite sure, but that's not exactly how you want the car to be handling. Just want to point out as a last thing also that Ryan L83, although we've said he's been struggling, he's still setting nearly top 50 times. That stage 6 time was good enough for 56th place, only 16 seconds off of the leading pace in that one, so it's not bad at all. And it just proves how difficult and fast these Rally 1 cars are.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible. If you look at, it's a 20-kilometer stage to finish. We're on a 10-kilometer stage at the moment. We're setting times at about 5.5, 6 minutes. So we're going probably a kilometer every 30 seconds, if maths and memory serves me correctly. That is astonishing, especially considering how close and narrow the artifacts and the buildings and the trees, I mean telegraph poles as well, are to this road as we run up the hills.
Yeah, it's not the easiest of rallies, and you've just got to get your head down and just get into it and be, you've got to control the stages, you've got to control the car rather than let them control you in this situation. Because if you start reacting to everything, there's so many obstacles and things that that make you hesitate effectively, that you can just get up in all kinds of trouble over nothing. What a save there from Ancephalosis once again. Definitely Aerotech and Ancephalosis really struggling here, as Becky B is playing very aggressive with those barriers, wanting to gain time, probably looking at the overall results, thinking if Lembar makes a mistake in this one just due to pressure in the championship, there could be some more points, if not an overall victory on the cards. So a lot to play for here, and a lot in terms of psychology for the drivers to deal with.
Yeah, I think it is, especially if you run into the final runs. It always kind of builds to this peak of pressure and confidence. It's a weird world where they both combine at the same time. If you've had a good run of rally, the pressure increases because some others will have had the same run, but also your confidence is at an all-time high as well.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, you get into the rhythm of driving every week, and the confidence levels do tend to go up, despite some accidents or problems that drivers might have. Toward the end of the season, probably everybody's just trying to push for a good result, and it's usually the time where we see drivers experimenting or trying new things if they're confident enough, and that's maybe also what we're seeing tonight, is drivers that are that confident that they are trying things that aren't working out for them just because they know this is a difficult rally, where they need that extra helping hand if they can make it work effectively.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Vlembar and Kamikaze, I'm assuming, haven't. Oh, Kamikaze has started his run. Vlembar just waiting to go, I think, for his timing marker to try and begin. Eritech's right near the end, though. He's not on an almightily bad time either. He's on about 5 minutes 20. He's not going to hit probably top times, but it is looking good for Eritech.
Yeah, Aerotech's been in the top 50 times, multiple times this rally. Struggled a little bit on the rainy stages, but this is looking very solid once again from Aerotech, just missing that barrier there. And yeah, he might be able to put himself inside the top 50. After stage 6, he is sat P53 overall. But there's very little gaps in between, so a little mistake from not Aerotech, Ancephalosis there. He's got 2 wheels on the grass still, so he can't recover it. Yeah, just the car rotating, I think, once again, it's just catching him out. So you can see just on his steering inputs that he's really struggling. Let's have a look at the time. We just switched away from it, but I'll find the time on the RaceNet leaderboards, hopefully. But you can see many drivers playing very aggressive with the barriers, and Kamikaze nearly went off while we were talking about Aerotech, just putting 2 wheels on the grass there, using the full extent of the track, but it can backfire on him so much, and we've already seen one big mistake from him. So does he really want to risk that? At the moment, it seems like yes.
Yeah, I think maybe there might have been some mind games in the off, and Kamikaze is on almost a full push mode as he makes his way through the hills in Japan, and he wants to try and top the timing strings. I think that's, as a competitive driver, you're in that mindset, but you sometimes always want to do it, but you have to back off for certain reasons, or like the championship reasons. And I think we've seen that from the Kamikaze in the last few weeks. He's good and securing good points, but I think we're seeing another fire being lit inside that man as he continues through the hills. He's had a bad couple of stages, at least by his standards. Let me just put that out there. They've not been bad by any means, but probably by his own standard, he'll be looking to try and recover some time as he makes his way through the penultimate stage.
You know what they say, your first and foremost enemy is yourself. You're always looking to better your times. Oh, Kamikaze with a huge slide there, and just putting wheel on the grass once again. So I think Kamikaze might be pushing for just some power stage points to prove something here. As we said, egos can play devastating effects on your mind sometimes. But yeah, for sure, a lot of the drivers just getting into that rhythm and groove, and yeah, for Test Will, it's still not going well. Just a little bit of problems, although he's carrying more apex speed. I must say the speed is getting there, but I'd say also just maybe a bit too reactive on the wheel. I think he mentioned coming from the Formula 1 games, and oh, Ryan L83, the wrong side of the barrier. This is a new one, so he has to find a place where there's not a tree and a gap in the barrier. There we go. all recovered, smile on the face, everything's good. Nothing to see here. Unfortunately, Ryan, we did catch that on camera as we got Test Will into the barrier, I think in the potentially around the same location, maybe just a little bit afterwards, actually. Yeah, it's a little bit twitchy in those for those two drivers. I'm thinking maybe in terms of their wheel settings, they've just gone a little bit too aggressive, circuit racer style. Whereas they're just wearing the front tires out effectively with too much steering angle. Ryan L83 into the wall. Will that be a puncture? That was a huge impact on the front. And we'll have to wait and see. Does he stop for anything? It looks like the car's handling okay. Let's see into this right-hander. Yeah, he's got away with it. Once again, everybody getting very lucky with punctures today, to be honest. But it can go the other way easily.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually had a puncture, at least not one that we've managed to catch on the broadcast by any means. But I was going to go back to a point that you mentioned earlier, but now there we go. You were talking about tyres and how they've had to hold on for the stages. Of course, we're in an interesting position here. It's a long run. There's no service area heading into the power stage, so conservation of tyres is going to be key. But 30 kilometers is a long way to run these tyres if our drivers want to push for every single kilometer.
I think paradoxically, actually, if you look at the stage length, we've got a better situation that we find ourselves in most rallies. In that they've been able to swap tires every single service, which for a tarmac rally is almost unheard of, because of those wet weather stages. So normally, where at some point during the rally you'd have to run a set of tires for 4 stages or more. Now we're in a situation where they've been able to change tires and only run them for 30 kilometers. I think if they'd gone for the harder compound tire, which I think is the soft tire, paradoxically, as Ryan just, literally putting a wheel next to the barrier, clipping the barrier, but and getting stuck on top of the other barrier. That's not optimal for sure. Just losing the grip and then getting stuck. It's very, very slippery slope, as they say. Pardon the pun, but it can go very, very easily wrong here, and especially when you're getting the car to sort of dance through the corners. You can be very fast doing that, or you can be very, very close to an incident every single corner, as we're seeing the rear of the car just sliding all the time. Just to finish off on the tires point, if they've taken the harder compound tire, 30 kilometers should be easily doable. I'd say probably if they got to 40, 45 kilometers, maybe they'll be starting to struggle. But yeah, it's a lot better than in previous rounds that we've seen.
Yeah, I think actually, you say that point now, that makes complete
Ryan.
sense. We've had. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, once again interrupted. I'm not sure if everybody saw that, but Ryan literally 3 wheels on the grass on the outside of the corner, staring at a wall of trees, and he just throttled 100% and went sideways just to recover onto the road. But that was impressive. Good recovery. Sorry for interrupting you there, TK.
No, that's all good. It's always important to cut away to, let's just say, the action that's happening as well. And it is crazy as we head through the twists and turns of Japan. I'm trying to assume Becky being Aerotech now on the final running stage.
It would appear so. Yes. They were on stage 7. They've just started this stage. And seeing as they're the first drivers for us, that means they're definitely on the last stage. The power stage, 5 extra points available to our Creator Series drivers, and which goes toward their score on our Creator Series leaderboard, which is different than the overall leaderboard that you can see on RaceNet. Although I can guarantee you that a lot of the drivers are looking at... have we had a DNF here from Encephalosis? I think we might have had a DNF from Encephalosis. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think we have.
I saw footage of him going into a barrier. I did not see footage of him finishing the stage on the replay. So that might be our second DNF of the session, which would be very unfortunate because Encephalosis has been being a trooper's job in terms of just battling the car, and it looks like that one snap too many has got the better of him, sadly.
Yeah, that's unfortunate to see him end his rally at the final time of asking. It's it's a gutting one, and you work so hard, you've got through 7 stages already, and then you find yourself probably at the final one, and you're like, oh, just one minor mistake is sometimes all it takes.
Yeah, indeed. You can see there at the bottom, not on broadcast, but we can see it on his camera. There we go. The bar of the replay does not go to the end of the last sector. You can see the sectors by the sort of gaps in the replay column there as it plays along. So that means that he did not reach that split, which means there was indeed a problem. Yeah, I'm gutted. I'm gutted because it's having a season a lot like Kamikaze had last season, where the pace is good, but the consistency is just, for whatever reason, not there and not playing and working with him effectively. And you can lose confidence easy. It can go from bad to worse, as Becky B having a huge snap of oversteer through there. Recovered it though, so all is good for the moment.
Aerotech.
Sorry, TK, carry on.
No, Aerotech really understeery there. He tried to turn the car right. Car was not responding. And that bonnet got a face full of barrier there, unfortunately. He is, I think, fairly unharmed by it. The car doesn't look to have got any major damage. And he will be able to continue, very fortunately.
Yeah, the big aerodynamic damage at the front, I think. And radiator damage as well. So that's going to hamper the engine. Probably a minor loss in engine performance by the end of the stage, which is not great, because a tarmac rally and a rally where you're pushing this flat out uphill and downhill, the engine performance actually does make a big difference in certain sections of this stage. So I'm sure Aerotech won't be thinking about that at all. They just want to focus on the top 50 finish, which is still possible. But yeah, any mistake now is going to cost them dearly.
It certainly is, and especially on that final run home, it's the opportunity for them to try and get some crucial points. Power stage, of course, bringing up to 5 points for the quickest driver over the course of that run. And sometimes 5 points can make the difference in positions in championships.
Indeed, we've got Testable just going off there again in a braking zone where the pace note is called at the late possible setting, I think, and so you barely have time to get on the brakes. And I think it was just maybe 2-3 tenths of a second late on jumping on the brakes, and that makes all the difference. And now straight into a barrier as well, as he's just got a huge snap of oversteer, again putting a wheel on the grass. It can be very difficult if you're used to the Formula 1 game and driving in the center of the car, to actually remember that you're driving to the left of the car generally, and so that you're a bit further out than what you think you are effectively. Or a bit further in, depending on which corner you're taking. But yeah, obviously the power stage, everybody wants to win this one, even if they've had a bad rally, so they will push flat out, unless they're fighting maybe for the championship. Although, well, that being said, we've seen it Kamikaze win power stages when we don't expect him to be pushing, so I might just eat my own words there on that one.
I'm sure we'll see as we continue through the twists and turns. So welcome in Pondon and everybody from Pondon's community just raiding in after, I believe he was doing a little stream on the GM Cadillac news over in Formula 1. But you join us for the WRC Creator Series on a Monday, penultimate round of the season. And we're at Rally Japan, and we are on the final stage as well, or more commonly known as the Power Stage.
Yeah, indeed, the stage which gives you bonus points, effectively the fastest lap of a Formula 1 race, in just a little bonus at the end for the driver fastest on the last stage. And so all of our drivers here, no matter what kind of performance they've had during the previous stages, they will be pushing flat out. And we've seen, I think this one's going to be very, very close between Becky B, Vlembar and Kamikaze. But although maybe somebody like Ryan L83 can get to grips with the car and start pushing, and just as I say that, I thought they were going to go straight into the barrier there, as that's exactly what Test Will did. Just getting wheel on the grass or on the gravel, and it can be all over in a flash. For some of our drivers, such as Vlembar and Kamikaze, this is crucial last stage possible in fighting for the championship. If Kamikaze finishes this stage with good points, he probably will be crowned champion, even with 1 round to go. So Vlembar needs to force a mistake and win the stage at the same time. We'll have to wait and see. They've still got half the stage to go. A lot can happen in 20 kilometers.
Yeah, there's a lot to try and contend with, a lot to try and deal with as well. Most of our drivers are about halfway through. Kamikaze, you can see on the left-hand side, about halfway through the stage, and he will be looking to try and secure the championship here this afternoon. Lembo is pretty much equal to him, and this is going to be a fascinating finish between the two of them.
It will be, certainly. For the moment, Vlembar has had the advantage in the stage, but and in the rally in general. But Kamikaze noted since the start of the rally, in fact, even just the week before, he said the next rally will just be a case of finishing with some good points, and he's certainly doing that. A calm and collected driver's test will off the road once again. I think just a repeat of the incidents we've been seeing from him. And that will not help the confidence either with the lights being removed, so visibility is going to be even more difficult. I think damage accumulating on that car, sadly, and just locking the brakes all the time, not being able to get the car stopped is really hampering his confidence, I think, in general.
Yeah, rally can quite often be a confidence game, especially in the Creative Series here on a Monday, and it's what we have to try and deal with. They have to try and... It's a hard way to describe it. You've got to feel in the right frame of mind to go into one of these events, especially as you're midway through. You've got to have that confidence high. Being told as well, and Stephanopoulos had a puncture. That tyre left the wheel as he entered the corner, which caused him to understeer into a guardrail for terminal damage.
Yeah. That sounds very rally-esque. That's in rally in a nutshell, I'd have to say. Just one thing leading to another. That's very, very unfortunate for Ancephaloses. And they won't get to participate in the power stage because of it. But yeah, getting a puncture on tarmac is just terrible, and to have it let go at high speed is even worse. So yeah, I feel bad for them. But hey, there's one round left in the season, a chance for redemption.
Yeah, certainly is indeed. And I think our drivers will be trying to, let's say, score the maximum points that you're allowed out of the course of that round. Of course, Oceana, I think we've done that once before in the Creative Series in a previous season gone by. I remember being alongside yourself, I think, John, for that one back in either season 2 or season 3. As that's Ryan off, well, his car was lifted up by something and facing at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah, just went up the bank there and then wanted to continue, but failed to spot the small post that was in his way. And so, you can see the look of disappointment on his face. That's a slightly bigger post. You don't want to hit that one, Ryan. You could see the disappointment when the car came to an abrupt halt, and he knew that he probably should have backed out of that one. But it can be so difficult to judge the levels of grip. As I said with the differentials before on these cars, sometimes you can get the perfect cornering speed, and then the car understeers a little bit or oversteers, and you have no margin for error. So it can be very what a rotation from Ryan there into that into the bridge section there. That is incredible. Very good commitment. I'm glad to see that. And it just shows that he's got the talent there. He's got the performance, and he just wants to use it, but can't find that consistent confidence mode to be in.
Yeah, again, it's that consistency that I think we've said over the course of the seasons that you have to try and hold that as much as you want to have.
Oh, Vlembar's off the road.
Oh,
sorry to interrupt. Just off cameras, Vlembar has gone off the road on the power stage. I think he recovered quite quickly, maybe losing 2 or 3 seconds, but you can see that's hampered him a little bit and understeering a lot. Maybe even being hampered by the lights there in certain sections. But that's a devastating mistake that could be the final hammer blow in this championship here. Like we've seen on many seasons, the power stage being decisive in this one too.
Yeah, that's not ideal for Vlembar, of course. He'll be well known as what's going on, and that is a lot of damage to Test Will. I think that is his front bumper completely gone.
Yeah, he went off the road just as we were talking about Vlembar. And as soon as we talk about one incident, another one happens, sadly. As we got Ryan L83 doing the NASCAR move of going up the banking. You won't gain extra points for that, but you'll gain respect, that's for sure. It's so tricky. The tarmac, we often say, well, why can't they do it? Because a lot of people are used to tarmac and all that. They're also used to runoff areas, and they're used to, pushing at 10/10 all the time. It can be very difficult as a driver to accept that you can only drive at 95%, and a lot of drivers are not used to racing at 95% of their pace. So it's a different style of driving. As you can see, headlights back on for Vlembar, obviously deciding that whatever issue it wasn't to do with the headlights. It was probably just due to some sort of unforced driving error. But yeah, you can see in this last stage that they're really going for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I think they are going to leave everything on the asphalt to save both physically and probably metaphorically at this point as well. As we saw that earlier crash from Flember as he made his way through, but they are probably only a few meters away from reaching the end of that timing beam as well. We will continue through. We'll continue through keeping an eye on both of them and see who comes out with a better sector time. It's still going to be incredibly close between the two of them.
As always, it is. In fact, incredibly, I'd say that it's still Vlembar ahead on the stage. I'm trying to look exactly at what the gaps are, but they're about 10 seconds apart on the stage, as you can see by the timers. But I'd say, it's going to be so close. Actually, I think they're neck and neck in terms of the times. I cannot differentiate. Just looking at where they are on the course, I know this sector quite well. They're literally maybe a couple of seconds apart at the moment, and with the gap of points being so far in Kamikaze's advantage, any points that he can get over Vlembar might just be enough to tip it over the edge and to get an unassailable lead. They're literally into the last corners now. After this, it opens up onto a straight, just the last corner here really for Kamikaze. Now a short blast, maximum speed, onto up through the gears and through a tiny little chicane here, but that is essentially the end of the rally for Kamikaze, as across the finish line he goes, flashing the lights as with a 12:04, and I think Vlembar completing at exactly the same time. So I did not catch Vlembar's time though. It was an 11:54, so Vlembar went faster, but not as fast as Becky B. So Becky B, and more importantly, IRC JPH might have taken a power stage win here. I'm just going to get the timing up, but this is incredible.
Yeah, we'll try and keep you updated as and when we can, of course, as people come across the timing beam and when we're able to get the notes up on our screen. Becky B P11, JPH P9 over the course of the final stage. So yeah, that's what it's looking like.
Indeed, as we've seen Ryan going off as well. I think he's got quite a bit of damage on that car if we're looking at the way it's handling at the moment, or he's just cooked the tires. Maybe he's gone for the softer compound tire and it's really not working. But that is what a run from IRC JPH. It went completely under our radar. We were talking about the championship and the prognostics for that, but he's finally managed to get that run that he wanted to, I think. And he's finally managed to find the pace on broadcast, and I'm sure he will be very, very proud of that one. And let's hope for him that it sticks. I'm sure it will, but there's always the chance that a driver behind will get a faster time. So who knows for the moment as we wait for all of our drivers to complete. As we've got two tiptoeing through the stage, I'd say, with Test Will and Ryan L83. Having their various problems, unfortunately. They haven't really been able to solve it this rally, have they?
No, they haven't. It seems to be a rally of unfortunate consequences for the two of them at the moment. But I'm sure when we head to Oceania next week, they'll put the troubles and tribulations behind them, and they'll go flat out once again once we find a new dawn for the final round of this WRC season. Ryan just using the banking as well, just to finish off the runs, using barriers as well to twist their way through. Finally, across the line is Test Will. I can't quite see that time. I think it was a 13.06 if I can read the text that small.
I think you might be correct in that one. I will double check if I can. 13:06, you are correct. But again, it's not a bad stage time. With all of the problems that they've had, their pace when they haven't been having problems is very good. It's just they've got to sort out whatever is going on in that braking zone that is causing them to just completely lock the brakes and go wide and have all sorts of crashes. For Ryan, the throttle pedal needs to be applied with a little bit more finesse, I think. He's definitely using all of the power. You know, if you've got 380 brake horsepower, Ryan is using 381 of them, that's for sure. But sometimes the tires cannot take it, and he's going for it. Look, I do love this sort of driving style. It's so entertaining.
It almost feels like it's going to be I'm just going to send it and see what happens sort of vibe at the moment. I am using every single ounce of output that this engine's going to give me, especially in these late stages where you don't have to worry too much about damage because you don't have future stages. No. Reset for any major damage though.
That could have been so much worse. I saw him approaching and he was still in 5th gear. Oh, that's
beautiful.
Oh, beautiful as well. Stopping next to Marshalls, I think, as well. Wonderful stuff. Good rotation. A few other donuts as well. Now to carry on to the stage finish. I don't blame him. But yeah, that was. I saw that coming because I saw Kamikaze and Vlembar lift off into that corner, and I was like, "There's a reason for that. There's a bank on the left-hand side there." And when I saw Ryan didn't lift off. Yeah, bad things were about to happen, but in terms of bad things happening there, I've seen far worse. So I think Ryan got away with that. Could have gone the way of encephalosis, and it's still a time nearly in the top 100. So actually, there's not too much to be not proud of. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I think no matter what time you end up with in these rallies, you're always going to find someone that it is around your competition. And when we look at the creator standings, it is so close between our drivers as well. Like our top drivers all separated by probably only about 60 or 70 points in that top 7 or 8. So over the course of the season, that has been incredibly close, and that's yet to add Estonia's runs or Japan's runs in. So we have got 2 more rounds to add in later on.
Yeah, sorry, sir. I'm trying to get a confirmation from our drivers concerning the championship, but at the moment, nobody replying. We'll see if we can send a few messages here because, yeah, the standings yet to be updated for the moment. But I'd safely say that's probably gone Kamikaze's way.
I think you might be right. We'll take the assumption that he probably has won it over the course of this evening.
I think so. In terms of points, I knew that Vlembar had to outscore. Let's put it that way. So I don't think Vlembar has outscored in this rally by enough points for Kamikaze to have been denied the championship. I think it needed a DNF, and so the results as they stand for the moment, it can change. But we have Vlembar P8, which is P1 Creator Series standings. Becky B P9, right behind by a gap of 10 seconds. So that will be P2. Then we got IRC JPH with again that wonderful power stage run, but also a great run to 13th place overall. All these things are overall, and that's 3rd in the Creator Series, which should leave somewhere here. Yes, on the second page, Kamikaze P26, 4th place. I'm probably going to say that's going to be enough points, near enough guaranteed. But yeah, looking at the pace actually of these results, the gaps have been quite big, more than I would have expected on tarmac. I think people struggling to handle the Rally 1 cars, especially in the rain. Just want to know Aerotech P60. I'll keep calling them out as I come across them.
No trouble. Well, I think to round out the broadcast, like we kind of usually do here, we'll speak to Kamikaze to round it out. Of course, I think if we are going to make the assumption that he's champion, it's only right to finish off with an interview from himself. But why don't you select a driver to pull in? I think we haven't spoken to a fair few of them tonight, so we'll maybe go for 2 or 3 to finish us off.
It would be good to speak to maybe Encephalosis to talk about what happened. Maybe talk to JPH if we can get him in, and obviously round out with Kamikaze. Perhaps that would be my selection.
Let's do that then. We'll start off with Encephalosis hopping in to commentary box. I think the big story on everybody's mind at the moment is that DNF in the final stage. Talk us through what happened.
So on the second to last stage, we were coming kind of up a hill on a long straight. I know we were in like 5th gear going 100 miles an hour. Long straight. I know we were in like 5th gear. There was kind of like not even a runoff area. Maybe it was like a scenic parking lot kind of thing. And for some reason, I thought that was the way the road was headed at first, and then I realized that the road was breaking left. And you can kind of see me in the replay. Sorry, I don't have it up anymore. But I tried to correct as soon as I realized that the road was breaking left. And we were about halfway on, halfway off the road. There was like a little curb there. but to the right, unfortunately, it was like quite steep, like hill down to the river. So we were like halfway on, halfway off, but quickly got like kind of ejected. I think probably from that rocky little fence thing, and we hit square into a tree. Radiator damage, puncture immediately. Drove up actually very easily somehow onto this like felt like an 80-degree angle cliff, but then yeah, not long after that, maybe 30 seconds after that, we were on another straightaway going like 100 miles an hour, and we had the blowout. The blowout kind of shifted the car again a little to the right. There just so happened to be a guardrail that time. Hit square into that at 100 miles an hour, and that time it was terminal damage. So unfortunately, we couldn't do obviously the remainder of that stage, but the power stage either. So it's very, very sad ending to today's rally for me.
Yeah, one in I'd say in the championship which has not been kind to this season, for sure. But in terms of the driving when there weren't any mistakes, let's put it that way, or problems with the car, I think there's maybe some positivity to take from that in terms of the performance is still there.
Yeah, I think so. Um, I hadn't had time to practice Japan this week. I had some family stuff this weekend. Um, so we were going in mostly blind. I mean, almost no practice this week. So we were still getting like top 60 times. And we also were taking the Hyundai because everybody was taking the Puma, which was funny because that was my I don't think everyone's going to take this car, and I like the sound of the Puma, so I usually take the Puma, but I decided to switch it up since I wasn't that comfortable on the track anyway. But yeah, I mean, I was happy with the driving. I felt like we were flowing. Rally one can be a little hectic, obviously, on this location, but it's still you still have that capability to lock into that rhythm and flow that tarmac and especially Japan can offer you. So I definitely had some fun before the ending there.
Yeah, maybe not have finished off the way you would have liked, but hey, if you've had fun throughout the course of it, I think that's probably the overreaching story as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's about the friends we made along the way, right?
Exactly that. Looking ahead to next week as well, Oceania to finish off the season. How are you feeling about that one, or have you not really looked too far ahead yet?
Yeah, I did look ahead. I've actually got it up now. I was just looking at Oceania, Group A. I do see we have looks like an 11-mile stage forward and backward. I don't see any adverse weather, at least. Maybe a few nighttime stages. Yeah, I'm
Definitely
not.
somewhere.
I'm not. Man, Oceania is a tricky one because I think there's a few tricky places where it's really easy to terminal just because of like the cliff side or like even the not so cliff side. There's like small hills that are still terminal, cannot recover for some reason. Um, I know there's some tricky bridges too, but I actually feel fairly comfortable overall driving in Oceania. So I think it'll be a good challenge. Definitely one I'll want to practice up for because again, I know there's absolutely places you can terminal in Oceania, much like Japan. So we'll try to get a little more practice in, and we'll have to decide which Subi we'll take because luckily there's two competitive Subis in this class. So one of the two, surely though, you can count on a Subaru.
Sounds like you've got a lot of decisions to make on that one. So we'll see what happens to you next week, obviously. But yeah, I guess not your week this week. In summary of that.
No. No, not my week. That's okay. We still had fun and good driving.
Amazing stuff. Well, thank you so much for hopping in for a chat, Andrew, and thank you so much for taking part in the show as always. And I'm sure we'll see you next time out as well.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you
For
so
all that you do.
much. Wow, he's
What are you thinking
upbeat.
to next week? Yeah,
I think next week upbeat as well. That's probably a perfect round out of how his rally's gone.
yeah. You just can't break the fella. I don't think. Like he's always thinking of what can be done, what he's going to do on the next step, and yeah, wish I could have that attitude sometimes.
Very much so.
It's a very positive trait to just have so many problems in one season and to just go, oh well, next time is the good time. That's the type of person you want to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, very much so. And it's such a positive mental attitude that he always has towards situations like that. Should we get JPH in for a bit of a chat and let's see what he thought about his run through? JPH, welcome in to the broadcast. I don't know if he's got his headphones on. Hopefully he does. See if we can get a talk through how the power stage went for yourself.
I caught you mid-sentence there.
Something power stage.
Something power stage, yeah. No, it was power stage was just all about being smooth, to be honest, as was the whole event. I absolutely loved Japan and the stages in it, so power stage was just driving like normal pretty much, and got to the end of the stage and the time was there, which was really nice to see.
Got that Sebastian Ogier vibe to him here. I was just driving like normal. Yeah, just petering through the stage, just not really paying attention. He won. No worries, everything good. It's great to see in terms of you've been ramping up the pace for quite a few events now, and just see the fruits of that coming through. Even though you say it's an event that you like, still difficult to apply that to a broadcast and to a thing where you've only got one opportunity. So do you think you can continue this performance into New Zealand? And how important is that potential power stage victory to you?
Well, I've been trying to ramp up the pace, as well as I've also been ramping the cars quite a lot this season, which is not ideal. But I think as the season's gone on, it's just constantly just getting more and more sort of consistent, a bit more confident with everything. Just trying to push it a little bit more, and obviously mistakes are starting to happen a little bit because of it, but that's all about the learning curve. Obviously on tarmac's sort of my strength as it is, so I kind of expect higher of myself on tarmac than I do of any other surface. So it's nice to see the pace there on the tarmac where I'm pretty strong. And the Oceania, that's going to be fun, I think. It's a really nice event, it's really fast flowing, so that's going to be a lot of fun. The power stage, I mean, all depends on what else happens with other people coming through, John. If I get it, I get it. It's be a really, really good result. I'll be well chuffed, but to be fair, just being in the power stage points now with some of the creators we've got in the series is quite a nice achievement as itself. I mean, you've got like Vlembar, Becky, Kamikaze. The competition's very, very high, so just taking points is an achievement in my mind at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic run and fantastic so far from yourself, and I think there are probably a couple of other runs still to go. I know, Johnny, you've got to do your run at some point if you're going to do it this week.
Perhaps.
This evening, is that going to be?
Yeah, Lord have mercy on my soul.
But no, JP, it's just a fantastic run from yourself. Of course, proved yourself in amongst some of the fastest guys that we have here, and just congratulations for what could be a fantastic power stage for you.
It's brilliant. Well, thank you both for commentating as well, and for Jam for stepping in and producing. Very much appreciated as always.
Well, thank you so much, JPH, and I think we'll chat to you next week out as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Again, another one of the really humble, like everyone, I say this about every driver. Everyone's so humble in a way of that, oh yeah, we're quick, we've gone through this thing, but oh no, there's other people that will go quicker.
That's the nature of rally, I think, is that the community is so tightly sort of knit together that everybody sort of encourages and is very free with their words, and that's nice to see, I think, and it certainly encourages people to do better, and I think also the way just everybody words it is that the competition is so fierce. You can set a time early on and you think, oh, that'll be easily P2 or P3, and then you end up at 50th position on the leaderboard. So JPH running very, very nicely there, and I think maybe underestimates his run still a little bit.
I think he does, and you're absolutely right. And it's nice to see him maybe starting to build that confidence, but build the realization that he is probably one of the top guys within the creator standings, and that he can pull off those quick times as well. And I'm sure as we enter into the next season, when it comes around, that I think we're going to see more of these appearances from JPH, where he finds that form and hopefully finds that consistency to go along with it as well.
We certainly could see a scenario where we have more than two drivers fighting for the overall championship victory. I certainly see drivers like JPH, like Aerotech, for example, just putting up the next level of pace. And yeah, maybe in a season or two's time, they'll just get that little bit of confidence boost, and it'll be right there. So that's for drivers like Vlembar and Kamikaze to worry about at night. Put it that way.
Very much so. Well, speaking of drivers like Vlembar and Kamikaze, let's get Kamikaze in to round off this round of interviews. And of course, from what our calculations have been here in the commentary box, now take that with a little bit of napkin math, we're fairly sure Kamikaze, season champion.
We will see. We will see. My calculations is not that there yet. So yeah.
Oh.
Depends if Quinten counts for Estonia or not.
That's a good question, seeing as we didn't have a broadcast.
Yes. So if Quinten count, I'm not the champion yet. So if you don't count, I'm.
That will be one to take up with our stewards called Punju and Gareth.
So yeah.
Neither of who are conveniently here this week.
Yeah, funny that. That's very, very convenient.
I have take that in my mind today, so that's why I won off the point to get to finish line. I'm not pushing at all. I just try to secure some points.
It nearly went wrong, to be fair. Yeah, just want to point that out. Do you want to talk about that?
I had some luck. Vlembar was investigate that a couple of times. But what happened? I was straight into the DNF and just the car resets by itself. So I'm luck on my side.
Yeah, it has happened at some point. We've talked many times now about your season last season where everything went wrong. Now it's going right. That's just what happens.
Yeah, and I take last season in my mind as well. Pushing too hard, and I thought I know the stages, but everything changes. So let's see. This season we have put a good effort into setups and practice, and we have turned off a little bit of what you call it, aggression or something. Yeah, we don't go in 110%. We take a little bit off, so we're going 90-95%, and try to reach the limit. Try to reach the finish line every time. No DNF. We are here today.
I'm not sure if he's watching a different feed to us, TK. But yeah, okay, whatever he says.
We got to remember, like, Kamikaze's 95% is probably my 250% as we continue through this rally.
Yeah, but if you don't know the stages, I barely driven Japan, and I need to take it for what it is. It's a difficult rally. If you don't, I have no track knowledge on this one, so I need to trust the co-driver 100%. And you can see that on my driving style. I was so on and off on the throttle, on the brakes. I was so unsure, so I just need to trust the co-driver.
Fair enough. Well, looking forward to next week. Well, I'm sure, hopefully, we'll have all the standings figured out and everything before we head to Oceania. And then, if everything's got their ducks in a row, we'll be able to properly declare a season champion at the end of it.
That will be fun. And if we are secure before next one, then we can turn on the percentage again, maybe 120, 130, flat out.
I look forward to it more than anything.
That will be fun. I miss pushing very hard. So yep.
Amazing. Well, congratulations if it does turn out in your favour. Commiserations if it doesn't quite yet. I'm sure we'll see you next week out in Oceania. But thank you so much for hopping in, Kamikaze.
Thank you.
I need to drag him up. There we go. I forgot I was doing all the dragging around today. Completely passed my mind. But, as with all good things, this must come to an end. And, we're on a bit of a knife edge here. We think something's happened, but we're not 100% sure. So we leave into next week on a bit of a cliffhanger.
It's under investigation with the stewards. That's a common theme in certain championships. Let's put it that way. So it'll be the theme in this one as well. It's one of those things that we try and separate the creators from the official standings for good reason to make sure that we can have our own championship and all that. But it does come with a lot of work behind the scenes, and often we have a tendency to maybe forget a little bit about all of that work, and it's in situations like this which we are reminded that it does have its purpose effectively. And so we'll get that sorted out. We'll be able to announce it next broadcast or beforehand, maybe on social media, who knows. But just want to also give a massive shout out to our producer behind the scenes, standing in for Gareth, Mr. Jam. Him, Jam ONG, on the broadcast normally driving, but stepped in, took the role of producer. It's a very difficult role, I know that, and so I just wanted to give a massive shout out to them.
Yeah, echoing John's comments, it is a massive undertaking, the WRC package. Gareth has built this complex monstrosity that comes together and works. And to come in with probably less than a couple of days' notice, figure it out, and go with it on the fly, it is a massive job well done for Jam. So give him a follow, give him a lot of love. Who knows? Go see what he's doing, because probably making some music out of some Crash music. That's what we were talking about earlier as well. But no, massive shout out to Jam for stepping in, producing, whilst Gareth's internet is more in the mud than my rally skills.
Ooh, that's a good one. No, I like that one. Oh, yeah. That hit the nail on the head right there. I'm not sure Gareth will be very happy about it, but that was a good one.
But you never know. With no internet, he can't exactly see what we're saying right now. So, John, thank you so much, as always, for being alongside us in the commentary box. Where can they check you out if they want to do so just a little bit more?
Everything is amusing. I'll probably be doing my run in a few minutes' time, and probably crashing into everything within sight, which is usually my side of things. If anybody saw my Kenya run earlier, let's not talk about that. Anyway, moving on. It's just nice to be here for the broadcast, so I can't continue to thank enough everybody that participates and that makes the Creator Series happen, including yourself, TK.
Well, thank you very much. Massive shout out to all the creators as well that come along and race every week. Go check all of them out. I think you could probably figure out their handles. They're on their little tags at the bottom. If you go back and rewatch the broadcast, above all of our heads are the Creator Series social medias for YouTube, Instagram, X, or Twitter, and TikTok as well. You got highlights, clips, and pretty much everything behind the scenes happening on there. As myself, I'm at They Call Me TK on pretty much every single social media. And until we see you next time out for the final round of this season of WRC, because boy, that came around quickly, it is good night and God bless.